So in this video, we are coming to learn about sentences. So without wasting much time, let's talk about formation and structure of sentence. So the construction of sentences can be done better by first learning to know the parts or units that come together to form a sentence. So there are 5 basic units in English language. So these are the morpheme, word, a phrase, a clause, and a sentence. So let's discuss them one by one. The morpheme. This is the smallest and the simplest meaningful part of a word. A morpheme contains no other smaller part or unit that can stand on its own as meaningful as the morpheme is. So for example, the word teacher contains 2 morphemes, the teach and then the a. So the teach and the a. Okay, the teach and then the a. A word. Okay. And the word book has 1 morpheme, book, because of what the B-O-O is book. So only 1. But when you add S to it, and it becomes books. So books has 2 morphemes, book and then the word S in a plural form. So note that morpheme has much more to do with what? That's much more to do with the meaningfulness or making meaning or sense than just sounding making or sound making. So let's go to a word. A word is a unit of English or a group of alphabets that has 1 or more sounds which can be spoken to represent an idea, action, or object. A word always contains 1 or more vowel sounds and also 1 or more morphemes. For example, a pen, car, turn, eye, fire, blue, tick, and etc. So examples have been given to you. So a phrase is a small group of words without a finite verb. Please take notes about this. Without a finite verb. A phrase is a small group of words without a finite verb. So remember, a finite verb is a verb with its corresponding subject matching it in the same expression. So a phrase has no finite verb. Examples of phrase are coming home, a basket of flowers from my heart, and then in the garden, the class prefect, the future leaders. So those are the phrases. So let's go to a clause. A clause is a group of words with a finite verb. So a phrase is without a finite verb, but a clause has a finite verb. So a clause contains a subject and a verb called finite verb, all in the same expression. So the example there is what? Who come late? So who come late? For example, the boy who come late is the clause. Who come late becomes what? The clause. The last one, a sentence. A sentence is a group of words that make a complete sense. A sentence may contain phrases and clauses, but altogether they make a complete sense or thought. Every sentence must begin with what? A capital letter. Take good note of that. Every sentence must begin with what? A capital letter. The basic part of a sentence are the subject and the predicate. So let's look at the example. I love you so much. And then we can even write our own example. Accra in the capital of Ghana. My mother comes from Lagos. Nicholas knows how to play tennis. All these are what? Sentences. So now let's look at the structure or part of what? Sentences. Structure or part of what? Sentences. So part of sentences. Okay, a sentence has some basic elements or parts to make that complete thought. So the structure of a sentence can be broken down to 2. One is what? Subject and predicate. Subject and predicate. So the predicate also broken down into what? A verb, object, and complement. A verb, object, and complement. So let's study the table. So this table shows only what? 2 parts. There's the subject and what? The predicate. Trees grow. Tree subject, grow predicate. The lady called her mother. The lady called her mother. The lady subject, called her mother, predicate. We owe God much gratitude. Samuel slapped Mary yesterday. So if you are able to identify the subject, you'll be able to what? Identify the predicate too. So note that all the sentences have two mandatory or compulsory elements, subject and verb. Okay, so no expression can be called a sentence without a subject and what? A verb. So without a subject and a verb, there is nothing expression like a sentence. Okay, so note a sentence begins with a capital letter and ends with what? A full stop, question mark, or exclamation sign. So a sentence must have a subject and a predicate in order to express a complete thought. So let's look at some definitions of subject, predicate, and the rest. So let's define subject. A subject is the part of a sentence about which something is said. It's a part of a sentence about which something is said. In other words, the subject of a sentence is the person or the thing we talk about in the sentence. So it is usually the doer of the action in the sentence. Example, Nicholas knows how to play tennis. Nicholas knows how to play tennis. So underlined word is what? It's a subject. Okay, so Nicholas is the subject. So under the subject, there are a few forms of subject. A subject can be a simple subject, a complete subject, and a compound subject. So a simple subject is the main subject without the words which describe or identify it. Example, many unhappy people love dancing. Many unhappy people love dancing. So the people here is the simple subject or the main what? Subject. So note that the main subject, people, is usually in a noun form and represents what? The principal word in the phrase that represents the subject of the sentence. So complete subject. A complete subject is the simple subject and all the words which modify it. Many unhappy people but love dancing. So modifier many and unhappy are joined to people to form what? The complete subject. So many unhappy people is the complete subject. Many unhappy people is the complete subject. And a compound subject is made up of two or more simple subjects or main nouns joined by a conjunction and have the same verb. The connecting words are usually and or. So, for example, doctors and nurses have bungalows. Doctors and nurses have bungalows. Doctors and nurses have bungalows. So, doctors, nurses, are what? Compound subject because of what? The conjunction here, and. Okay. So now let's go to predicates. Predicate, that's number 2. So a predicate is the part of a sentence which says something about a subject. So the predicate represents what is said about the subject. Predicate means verb area. Thus, it usually contains the verb, the object, and the complement or other modifiers. So there is no predicate without a verb. Even if the predicate is only one word, it must be a verb. For example, trees grow. Trees grow. So the grow is what? Is the predicate. Trees grow. The grow is what? A predicate. And the predicate too has forms. So one of the forms is what? A simple predicate, complete predicate, and what? Compound predicate. So a simple predicate is a predicate or a verb without the words which describe or modify it. The simple predicate is usually the verb. Selma ate her breakfast earlier. So the ate here is what a simple predicate. So ate is the simple predicate. And then complete predicates. A complete predicate is the simple predicate and all of the words which modify or explain it. For example, the girls can talk faster than the boys. So can talk faster than the boys. the girls can talk faster than the boys. Can talk faster than the boys is a complete predicate. And a compound predicate. A compound predicate is composed of two or more simple predicates or a verb. For example, Peter walks gently and talks slowly. Walks is a verb. Talks is what? A verb. So a sentence, note that a sentence may have a compound subject and a compound predicate. For example, both Samson and Johnson love and care for people. So Samson is a noun and Johnson is a noun. When you join them, because of the and, you have compound subjects. Love and care are the verbs. So if you join them using a conjunction, which is and, you get a compound predicate.